All right, so we're live here. Happy Thursday, everyone. Super excited about this interview today. Here with Tito Caceres with Bloom Partners, uh, Talent Solutions, and we're going to talk recruiting today. So, I know that this is a topic that a lot of people are thinking about, especially this time of year, as we're thinking about what we're going to be doing this year, and ramping up for a busy season. So, thanks for joining us today, Tito.
Absolutely. Thanks for having me, Joseph. Excited
Awesome.
to talk about recruiting.
Good stuff. Yeah, and I guess before we dive into things, can you just give us kind of a little overview of yourself and how you decided to get into recruiting, but also specifically work with the green industry?
Absolutely. So I grew up in the green industry. My parents used to own a landscaping company. It was a small residential and some commercial stuff that they did. So I grew up, and then fast forward, I worked at one of the national companies on the commercial maintenance side. Was fast tracked, took a couple positions with those guys, and then eventually got recruited by a recruiting. It was a generalist firm, and he was starting to grow his the landscaping vertical, specifically working with some landscape companies and their recruitment needs, more on the executive search and some mid-level management positions, if you will. And so, look, I learned a lot about talent acquisition working with them with those guys, and then eventually. I saw an opportunity, and I wanted to more or less continue to support the green industry, and so I started Bloom Partners Talent Solutions, and since then been helping a lot of companies nationwide with their recruitment efforts, and only in the green industry. And I have an affinity for it. I think it's the biggest bottleneck for most companies, either for growth. It's always a challenge. Frontline workers or a challenge, right? And there's so many factors that play a part in terms of recruiting and sustaining, retaining accounts. I mean, there's so many things that are affected by people in this industry, and so I always had an affinity for it, and now I'm happy to support many different levels in many different ways, and we continue to hoping to continue to support the green industry in that way.
Very cool. No, that's an awesome background, and I guess before we even dive into, I guess, the whole strategy of recruiting and sourcing candidates and different things like that, there becomes the question of, okay, how do we know if we need a specific position, or should we be hiring for a specific role within a company, right? Isn't that kind of the first thing companies are probably thinking about? I guess, do you have a thought process behind that?
Yeah, I mean, they should probably be talking to you guys first and foremost, right? Making sure that they have some. But no, that's a great question. Obviously, growth only comes with with your people, right? And so, look, one of the there's a couple different questions that kind of arise whenever I talk to prospective clients or just hiring managers in general is how many people do we need? Do you know some of your metrics in terms of like, not to go too micro about it, but in terms of like how much revenue per truck? I mean, how much revenue can a manager take on, and those types of things? It's so different. As I mentioned earlier, it's such a fragmented industry. So I think it's identifying specifically the type of verticals that you're sub verticals that you're in, and then from there more or less figuring out what your people are, what your if it aligns well with your budget, and then you can start talking about other things like compensation and that kind of thing. But there is no that answer is can be pretty complex. The one thing I would say in my message throughout all of this, and whoever I can talk to, especially specifically about recruiting, is be proactive. Stay in front of it, because most times a lot of the calls that I get is I need someone yesterday, and at times at that time it's probably too late.
Absolutely. And I think it's one of those things that's probably easier said than done, because especially with a seasonal business, there's times where you get incredibly busy, right? Versus other times a year. I guess how can a company create a process, or what could be their approach to almost maintain that, and I know one would be, hiring Bloom partners, but what are what are some, I guess, thoughts you have on that in regard to how they can keep it front of mind and keep the process rolling, even if things get really busy in the field or in operations?
Yeah, make it intentional, right? Most people look at recruiting as something that can be seasonal. Um, it's evergreen. It never stops, right? And even with the seasonalities of this industry, that's fine, right? And if you break it down nationally, right, depending on the region you're in, the Midwest, right, you got snow. If you're Northeast, is snow. Yeah, if you go to Southeast, that's not a thing. But then you got still a lull in certain parts of the year if it's too hot, right? Because now you're potentially, not working as much or not mowing as much grass. Irrespective of all of that, you still need to make it intentional that you could find or identify a time throughout the year that you have that lull to make this a priority. If you're in snow, you should probably start your recruiting efforts in the summer, right? Because most people are thinking about snow when it's snowing or right before. Or if you're, in the springtime, most maintenance companies are thinking about, oh man, we're gonna wait till the springtime or we're gonna wait till the fall time. Those are our peaks, if you will. Why don't you start doing that in January or December of the year prior, right? And I think that there's this thing that people think that, like, if you were to approach me, or people think that you have to hire someone on the spot. Some of the best professionals that I've seen that we've placed or that we've helped in finding new opportunities, some of our clients, it takes a while to fill some positions, and conversations can be had for a long time. If someone's gainfully employed, and they're leaving an opportunity to find it for a better one potentially, that those conversations and those processes are take some time. So I would always just tell you this: if I were to give anyone like a rule of thumb, everywhere is different. So some positions are quicker; you could fill them a little bit quicker. Like the frontline workers or could be a little bit quicker to fill because the qualifications are a lot less. But some of maybe the positions that have a higher requirement of higher qualifications, if you will, they're going to take a little longer, right? So maybe map out what that looks like for you. Those peak seasons, that shouldn't be the time for you to be recruiting. You should have done that when you have some, those valleys, if you will, throughout the year. That's different for everyone. And then also in terms of time to fill, which is it's a pretty well-known metric, if you will, and it's different for everyone. But like, so for frontline workers, maybe give yourself 30 to 45 days. Any mid-level management, maybe 60 to 90 days, and anything above that, if you're looking for senior management up to executive level positions, maybe that's up to 6 months sometimes, right? But if you can map it out and make that intentional, I think it's usually a good strategy versus being reactive, which it happens more often than not.
Yeah, no, those were awesome points, and I kind of want to break it down here. So I think the first thing, which I think is an awesome point, is based on the seniority of the role, you're basically want to give yourself more time to basically fill that role. And I think that, and it goes for what a lot of these leaders within these, companies should be kind of thinking in their process is thinking about thinking a step ahead from where you are now. And like you said, being proactive, not reactive. And the other thing now, because it may take a little bit more time, do you see that companies have almost like a pipeline of potential candidates, people that maybe they've had a conversation with in the past? Do you think companies are taking advantage of that kind of stuff?
They're not enough. It's great. One of the things that I always like, even for us internally, whoever we're talking to, and some of our recruiters, something that people don't really make the correlation is recruiters are salespeople. I would say everyone's a salesperson for any organization, right? And sales have a pipeline, right? Recruiting should also have a pipeline. And again, to your point, what I've seen, at least, a lot of companies don't have applicant tracking systems. You don't have to buy a fancy one, but you can have something where you can manage these relationships. You're managing relationships just as much as a salesperson is managing relationships to get me sales. People should be looked the same way, right? And you don't have to hire someone right on the spot. However, if I have a conversation with you now, even if it's for seasonal workers, if I've established a relationship and tell you, hey, in October of the year prior, I will be hiring next year by March of next year, I would love to bring you on board. That you planted the seed and established a relationship that maybe your competitors are not, and it's an easy way to do that. And now you're building off. Now you're potentially building a talent pipeline. So to your point, I think that's an easy solution for most, if not all, companies. And again, the nice thing is I have the perspective of internally for us as an agency. That's how we operate, right? Our candidates and people are more or less what we're offering our clients, and so internal recruitment should be the same way. And it's an easy way to do it. And there's a lot of cost effective ways. Is obviously if we're thinking about what solutions are out there, there's a lot of cost effective ways to do that.
Awesome. No, great points. And I think a lot of companies think about processes when it comes to training their employees or marketing or accounting. And, I think what you're kind of saying is come up with a process for your recruiting, and so that it can basically carry you into, some of the times that you can be prepared for, which is awesome. Now, when it comes to that time when you're thinking about hiring and even thinking about your current team, compensation, right? That's a big thing. Um, how do you approach that in regard to, I'm sure clients probably ask you, am I paying my team what what at at a good level, or what if they are going to post a position, am I, is that salary in line with what the market is? Is that something that, a common question you get?
All the time. The biggest challenge is at times what I've seen is like, are you as a company, number one, do you know, like, do the hiring managers and leadership know what compensation is within their market, right? It varies, right? And you have to keep up with it, right? We're already at a disadvantage, and I'm speaking high level about the industry, and a disadvantage. It's a seasonal job, can be um, more or less to be out. It's outdoors. You're working in different seasons, and it has its peaks and valleys. It can be hard work, and it has at times, unfortunately, a reputation that it isn't always the attractive job, right? But I always found also that it's also a beautiful opportunity for people to offer it as that too. Like there are opportunities where you are working outside, and there's a lot of ways to leverage that. Um, but when it comes to compensation, though, I think the biggest decision people will have to make if they realize, hey, like I want to compete, or do you know what you're competing against? Number one. Number two, if you have employees, this happens often, got a great culture, strong culture. We've got a tenure, amazing tenure. People stick, people love working here. Great. Um, I can't pay this next person that because I'm paying these people that have been here for 10 years for me. I've never, maybe I give them a 1% raise. I'm not, I'm exaggerating here a little bit, but I've seen this happen, right? And so I think sometimes, are you willing and ready to make a decision that, hey, maybe you need to get your existing employees up to market compensation, so that therefore that will lead you to attract the top or best talent that's out there readily available to take on an opportunity with you, because maybe you have an amazing culture. I saw a statistic recently, and I don't, you can fact check me. I don't have it in front of me right now, but I'll throw it out there. And essentially, I'll say this high level: the landscaping industry is one of the lowest paying industries in the country. You know, and the thing about that I think is unfortunate is it's also one of the fastest growing, one of the essential industries in the industry, one of the pillars of this country, and it's the curb appeal that we can see, that we know of today, that we mostly dismiss while we're driving or out on the road, is built off of this industry. Yet we're not paying the people accordingly. So, big opportunity there. I would say that people should definitely look at their current employees. Do some research. If I can, I guess, add in terms of like, how do you research that? Well, we've got some tools where more or less provide some insights, talent insights, compensation analysis, and that type of thing. It's different everywhere, different markets. Some positions are more or less kind of flatline in terms of like a range, if you will. Some others vary drastically. Like for example, one market that's kind of crazy, like of account managers, it's one of the highest paying for account managers in Dallas, Texas, right? And I'll just leave it there. But there's some micro markets that can, these companies have to pay a little bit more for their workers, but nonetheless, as hiring managers, they should understand what that's like, right, and keep up with it. Because honestly, I was on a panel not long, sometime last year at the GIE Expo, and I was talking to a business owner there. I think he's got like 1,500 employees in Midwest, and one of the things he said, he came up to me before we started talking, talk about recruitment, and he said, Tito, if you could push something to the industry, and I said, I made this decision for me, is that we need to pay our people more, right? And I'll leave it there. Obviously, everyone has to make their decisions, but it's definitely one of the challenges that we deal with, even helping some of our clients, is like, I can't find that unicorn if you're not willing to pay what the market is paying, and that gap can be a lot broader than we want that to. But it's make that up. It's driven by the market.
No, no, awesome.
It's sorry to
Awesome
get
points.
long-winded, by the way. It's just I
No,
have a lot
no,
to
no.
say about it. I think
It's all great stuff, and I see we have questions already coming through. So, but if anyone does have questions, definitely write in the comments. And I think that, and really, what kind of came to mind, Tito, was I think that it's almost a mindset shift as a business owner too, right? Because you can look at, especially the existing employees that maybe you feel are not at market, and it makes it especially awkward if you're then hiring someone at a higher rate. That could also be a sign that you haven't been increasing your pricing enough the past couple of years, right? And there's that you kind of have to consider where instead of having the mindset of, okay, what is the cheapest software I can get? What is the cheapest equipment I can get? What is the lowest I can pay an employee? Instead of that, think more about ROI perspective, right? Okay, I'm gonna increase my pricing, right? So I'm gonna give myself a little bit more room to hire quality people, that it's and which is also the right thing to do as well. So um, no, those are
and and
those are
and
awesome points.
and to add to that, one of the things that I would tell anyone this, I had a call from one of our existing clients in the Northeast, and his question was, it's like, do I gain benefit from hiring someone new, or do I gain benefit from promoting from within? I would also say those are easy opportunities for anyone. If you're having, it's easier to hire for lower level positions and promoting from within than it is the other way around. The essence of like when someone is promoted from within is obviously because they have the intimate knowledge of your company and your business, whereas you're trying to teach that from someone outside of your organization is a lot more challenging. So I would also look at that as a strategy as well. It's an easy way if if you haven't given someone a raise, well, have you considered maybe you could develop them for you to become your next leader, your next supervisor, your next whatever position, then that next step up. It's also an easy opportunity there and can alleviate some recruiting pains as well.
No, that's a great point. So it's almost thinking, especially if your bottleneck is maybe some of the higher level employees and recruiting them, thinking about maybe a better development plan for you know, some of the employees that don't have those kind of skills yet. So that's awesome. And
Because
we
they
have a
could go into
question.
another organization if they leave. I'm sorry, and to that same point, if they go to another organization that does have a development plan, if you will, now someone else is going to reap that benefit where that would have been an easy opportunity, just maybe a little bit of time.
Yeah. And I think that's where it's always nice to do everything that's in your control to, retains, especially team members that are A players, you want to retain them. So and those are the people that want to have a development plan too. So so we have a question from Selvins Landscaping. What would be an appropriate compensation for employees who have been with the company for over 5 years?
That's
It's a
you know,
general question,
I think
right?
it's a pretty general question. It depends on the position. Look, I would say this. Here's my recommendation for this person and anyone in that situation and circumstance. If you feel like there's someone in your organization that has, you know, it's been with you guys for 5 years, um, check out what other companies are paying these people, right? That's a good, easy way to more or less figure that out. You know, maybe hop on a job board and see, you know, someone with 5 years of experience, what that compensation looks like, and it could probably be an indicator whether or not your employee is where they should be, right? And also expand your search. You know, if you're in a rural area, you might not get some good perspective or understanding of what some of the is. You know, what if someone is, you know, has a family member that have to move to a metro area and you're in a rural area? Well, maybe check out some of those. The metro areas are really good indicators of compensation because of just sheer volume of people. So it's also a good strategy there to check out.
Awesome stuff. And so now those are some things even before you potentially look for some candidates. But I guess when it does come to sourcing, you know, and trying to find candidates, you have any tips for any of the people out there?
Yeah. I'm gonna start with the easiest one is source internally, right? Use your own people to source candidates. Use your own people to use their sphere of influence to source. I know it's not one that's talked about enough, but it's the easiest one. Mostly if you're A players, will most likely hang out with A players too. Will know some A players themselves, right? So reach out to them. You know, one of the things I've seen some companies maybe do is just like give, you know, even their frontline workers something, is maybe giving them some business cards or giving them a QR code, right, where they can slap onto their car or something, or they could slap onto their phone, using referral bonuses. And I know that you're asking specific questions about sourcing. I'll give you a couple more options, but in terms of like just using your current employee base, that's the easiest way to source new tap, right? Um, Other ones that, you know, maybe recruitment firms use and even internal recruitment teams, obviously using job boards to source new candidates. You know, now it's cool that there are like a lot of artificial intelligence there's a ton of tools now where you can, you know, more or less tell them what, you know, give them your job description and they can source candidates for you. A couple different tools that be used for that. Easy way to do it is just Google it. There's a ton of stuff out there now. I don't want to just pin on anyone specifically or call anyone specifically, but those are the easy ones. And one strategy to use, you know, there's always been a stigma, and I'm going to speak for when I was in landscaping. You know, if you're a company that doesn't use H2B and you've got challenges with frontline workers, I'm sure there's some of us that have seen people maybe going to gas stations and what do they call it, poaching people. You know, that's always a thing that's thrown that we tend to see. And so, look, there's nothing wrong with asking people if they know people, though, right? If you feel uncomfortable asking someone directly to come work for you, well, why don't you ask them? Because as I said, people usually, if they're good, they're going to hang out with good people, right? And so that goes the same, right? And so you could essentially do the same if you see people that are out there in the field. You know, ask them if they know of anyone. They may have a friend or someone that is unhappy at some other organization. That could be an easy way of doing it. And then another one I'm seeing a lot now too, and is just pushing out content, right? Pushing out content, and then lastly, pushing out content on social media platforms, that type of thing. But one of the things that I would say about like the landscaping industry is very fragmented. I've got two design build companies that are right next to each other, but they're doing things completely different. And so if I'm an employee, or if I'm a potential employee and I'm working for company A, but company B is reaching out to me, the thing is that like where I'm working right now, even though we do the same service, if essentially, or we provide the same services, they do things completely different, right? And it's, you know, a beautiful thing about the landscaping industry is it's a low barrier of entry. A lot of people can do this work, and a lot of people are very successful doing this, but there's not a lot of consistency. And so, how do you stand out, right? show people what a day in the life of working in your truck, which is going to be different. I mean, there's 1,000 different trucks. If you're a lawn care company, there's 1,000 different tanks. There's 1,000 different spray guns. There's 1,000 different chemicals. It varies so much. So the companies that are going to stand out are the ones that are going to be able to show people what it's like working for us, the type of equipment that you're going to be using, the type of uniform that you're going to be wearing. If you're going to be working in an office, what does your cubicle look like? What type of technology are you using? I know that sounds simple, but for us in the landscape industry, it's such a challenge because we're not consistent, which is also a good thing, but it's also where it's an opportunity for everyone to kind of show off why they're a little bit different, to attract that top talent. And that's a great way to source new potential talent as well.
Very cool. And once you have someone that shows interest, uh, and then you maybe like, do you recommend? And it might depend on the role. Do you recommend a screening phone call first, and then an interview, maybe a second interview? What does that process typically look like?
Speed is king. Speed is king. I don't care who it is. Speed is king. I think it's um, if I'm gainfully employed, I may be unhappy today, but then tomorrow I go to work, and then they say, hey, by the way, Tito, here's a promotion with a bunch more money, right? Just you gotta jump on these things quick. Things change quick. Lives change quick. Here's what I will say though is if I were to give maybe some rules of thumb, if you will, like the lower I hate saying it that way, but the lower the position, the quicker you have to be. The higher the position, it's a lot more involved in those types of things. But in terms of specific strategies, text message. That's the easiest way to get in touch with people as quick as you possibly can. Um, don't be scared to send people reminders. And just because someone doesn't respond quick enough doesn't mean that they're not interested. Things happen. Everyone's busy. But in terms of if you're recruiting for frontline workers, text people as quick as possible. In terms of like how to recruit them or how to get them, like frontline workers, you probably want to have them come in for an in-person interview. Make it a very short, quick call. Hey, how's it going? A couple questions I have for you. Can I have you come in for an interview tomorrow? Like make it as soon as possible. Also provide the ability. One of the things that like even for us is we've got a national coverage. We're working with companies as far west as Hawaii and even New York City. So it's a pretty broad range, but we have to adapt our communication to the industry. Remember, everyone's working outside. If I'm operating equipment, think about it. You're not. I'm not going to be on my phone. We're already challenged as an industry for people being on their phone. So think of your times to communicate, like really early in the morning, after 5 p.m. And if you're really serious about recruiting, hopefully you're out there. Yeah, I have a Mac, and I think it does. Hopefully, you're also able to connect and interview people on the weekends. And I hope that answers your question.
No, that's awesome stuff. And then with the actual sales language, and I guess as you're speaking with the candidates, or even during the process of the interview, do you have any recommendations on how companies should be approaching that?
Yeah, it's a great question. Um, you know, I would tell anyone, whatever, any hiring manager, get a script, and get some questions. It's important. Um, the candidate experience it's an easy opportunity to become either a memorable or two, I never want to work for them ever, right? And I'm never going to recommend them. Even if you pass on someone, but it's a pleasant, professional, prepared experience, the candidates will likely say, "This is probably not for me. I appreciate it, but I actually know someone that this might be perfect for." Keep that in mind too. So I would highly recommend, having a set of legal questions to ask these candidates. Some of the companies that I've worked with as well have gone to as far as providing some skills assessments. Those are super helpful. If you got some skilled labor positions, let's call it like irrigation, hardscapes, any of these, there's a number of them. You could also, if you want to make it, a little bit more where you can, if you need them to have certain credentials and certain skill sets and licenses and those types of things, those are also super helpful. But yeah, I mean, easy opportunity, be prepared, show them that you care. And if you're a leader in your organization and you have several hiring managers, also help them understand that that's important too, because it really is. The candidate experience could easily be its own sourcing strategy in and of itself, because people they'll remember you for the experience that they have. And also, if you're passing on someone, let them know, right? It's an easy opportunity for you as well. People don't expect to be interviewed and not like and not expect they don't expect to be hired because of an interview, right? So if you're not going to hire them, also let them know, hey, thank you, but we're passing this time, right? And if you know of anyone that fits our criteria a little bit more, that'd be great. And to that, I want to say too, one of the things that as I've worked with a ton of hiring managers is make sure that you know what you're looking for too, right? And I'm not saying that's easy, because it's not, especially for the higher level roles. Make sure that you clearly identify through a job description, within your organization as well, the function that this person will be playing. Because at times I've seen, wow, this person seems great for this, but maybe they could be for this, and maybe I could use this, or maybe what about that? You need to be very specific, so that your hiring can be a lot more streamlined as well.
Awesome stuff. And I I love how you mentioned using a script, because I think that will help when you're comparing candidates to other candidates, because you're comparing apples to apples. You ask them some very similar questions, right? Versus it's probably a little bit harder to compare two candidates if the conversation's going two separate different ways. So
100%. It creates consistency.
yeah, awesome stuff. And then I guess if now as for your services, right? Because I think that a lot of companies here can definitely benefit from some of the stuff you provide. Do you mind just giving like an overview of different ways you can help some of the companies?
Yeah. One of our main offering right now would be project-based recruiting. So someone needs usually from a mid-level manager up to a senior level position. We would essentially support that, and we would handle it from soup to nuts. We'd take and understand more or less exactly what you're looking for, analyze what your current structure is. We can talk about compensation, all those things, and then we're off to the races and finding this person, and we do. And then after someone's placed and we support them, we have a guarantee period if someone doesn't work out. But we try our best to understand from the front end. I think it all starts at the beginning. If we can match the right person that fits the criteria that this company specifically is looking for, and that's also going to fit the culture. A couple of other options are, so we offer like the easier, a lot of people have probably heard of contingency search, where it's more of like a resume service. We'll send out, a couple resumes. Some companies working with multiple firms, and so they don't want the commitment of a retained and dedicated recruiter, which is totally fine. And we get paid once we place someone. A couple other services. Another one that we're offering is a talent pipeline builder. This is a cost-effective way where essentially if you need like some skilled labor, and you don't want a dedicated search, then we can more or less take a flat fee per month, and then we more or less build a pipeline for you. We provide the sourcing support, and then you choose who you want to interview, and you have access to a ton of different profile, like a bunch of profiles specifically for a specific position. And then also the last one is consulting. So we're helping companies optimize their recruitment function. So say, it depends. Everyone has a different need. Some companies have internal recruitment teams, some don't. Some have HR people. Some it's just the CEO or the leader. Just, hey, I need help, with my recruiting function. So we can support that as well. technology optimization, onboarding, recruiting. I mean, yeah, specifically like recruiting function, interviewing, like all of those things. And we can more or less, that's a monthly flat fee depending on the project that we're working on.
Awesome stuff. Um, and then, Tito, so for I guess for those that are, kind of facing some recruiting challenges right now, or even just any general recommendations you have, just as just even based off the stuff that you're seeing, within the industry.
Yeah, couple tips. Start recruiting now. Start recruiting right now. If you foresee some positions opening up, or if you think some positions are opening up, it doesn't hurt to have conversations. That time that you invest in recruiting right now will eventually be beneficial later on. Build a pipeline, build your own talent pipeline. Um, have a this is a great one as well. Is do you have an evergreen post or an evergreen job description or something? If you have some positions that there's some, you could see that they're a little bit more volatile, especially in the front lines. Um, just have a position where it's always posted year round, right? And where people are applying. There's a trickle. It's just people are trickling in here and there. That's always effective as well. And if you haven't done any, this is an easy opportunity, your own internal job fair. Those are super helpful too, and there's great benefits to that. And you can mix that. I know a lot of companies do it where they mix it with like maybe some chicken Friday or something, and they have some of their team, so that people can come and see how your team is doing, and maybe how they if they're happy, and then also like that's and also in part like where people can feel good about maybe potentially looks like a great place to work. They're doing, this is great, right? So a couple tips there that I would highly recommend, especially right now, where things are, for some they're going to ramp up soon, and for some they're already in the thick of it.
Awesome. No, that's some great advice, and I I love the point of just having a job posting up year round, right? It's kind of, I think that's an easy starting point. So, awesome. And I know we have a question here. So, what is a good online training platform you like? Um, I had mentioned, so I know Bruce Allen talk. He owns a awesome landscape company. He has mylandscapeacademy.com, so you could definitely check that out. Tito, do you know of any training platforms?
No, there's a few, and I don't really, I can't really recommend any off the top of my head right now, unfortunately.
Okay. Yeah, no, I would say that's a good start, Yvonne. So definitely check that out. And then so how long do you give an employee to get up to your company standard with no experience? And how can you basically train them?
Yeah, that's a great question. It varies for everyone depending on the responsibilities and depending on how much training you're looking to provide, right? If you want to, like some rules of thumb, depending on some of the ways that some companies that I've seen, some it's 90 days and some is 6 months. Um, Generally, I see 90 days is a good time to figure out if somebody's gonna, really pick it up or if they're not. Um, and I would say I was gonna spin off to something else, but provide some flexibility as well if you can. It's just one of the questions, Joseph, that you asked me earlier is like what are some of the things that are, since the pandemic, if you will, have happened, and right, there's a lot of awareness on flexibility. So I know it's not something we can afford, right, in this industry. But if you could find ways to be creative with that type of thing, depending on the position, it won't hurt either.
Awesome stuff. Yeah, definitely. I think it's important to have that process for the training down so you can make that determination right within that time period. So
100%. Yeah. If you I figure out like a calendar, make sure that the onboarding process is established as well. And you know, look, there's what's amazing is like you lean on a lot of the online resources that are out there. As I mentioned, if you don't have your own internal video, like I know that there's some training platforms and some training programs for the industry, especially for someone that has no experience. Um, like NALP is a great resource, right? Like they have a ton of videos of like what a a crew leader is supposed to look, it's supposed to do. Look, we have recruiters that don't come from the industry, so I'm tasked to teach them, train them on there's all of these companies that are all doing different things and they're all dubbed landscaping, but they're all different. Um, Show your people, especially when they're new, if they have no idea about the industry, career paths. Easy way to. A lot of people don't know what my career path is. I mean, oh, if I'm, I don't know. My mom told me I needed to be a doctor. But did you know you could become a great CFO eventually at an amazing landscape company? Or did you know that these opportunities were there for you, right? Show people, and if you haven't done this, especially for hiring, it's amazing to see some of a lot of landscape companies that I work with don't even have an organizational chart. If you don't have one, create one. Show people where they can get to eventually. And even if there's some positions that you just haven't gotten to yet, that's a great way to also visualize what you're looking at, how you're looking to become, or how you're looking to grow, right? And that, in and of itself, could be great for a new employee with no experience because they could say, "Oh my God, like I can grow into that. I have something to work towards." And I think it's also another way to attract better talent.
Great stuff, Tito. And what is the best way people can reach out to you?
Yeah, you can find me on LinkedIn. We've got a Facebook page, we've got an Instagram page. Easiest way is probably through LinkedIn. We're there, Bloom Talent Solutions. We recently refreshed our logo and we made it more green. So it's more in line with the industry. But yeah, happy to help. We've also, maybe I could share my email. You could reach out anytime as well, and we'd be happy to help.
Awesome. No, that's fantastic. And thank you so much for, taking your time here to give us a rundown on, what you've been seeing, with the, on the recruiting side and, definitely looking forward to, maybe having you back on here one day. And, thank you very much, Tito.
Thanks for having me, Joseph.